we started making the record in Jamaica. We were recording in like a super weird old castle on a bay, and you'd just kind of hear beautiful waves of bass coming over the bay every night from clubs, which kind of found its way into the music, I suppose.
And driving through at night,
yeah.
You'd be like driving down the road, and then you'd hit a club, and it should be the sound system. The whole bus would be, or like the van would be like rattling.
Yeah, or even the kind of the sound system on buses, things be like on the back of a pickup truck. It's big, crazy speakers, and yeah, that was definitely exciting being in the midst of that, and whatever, just tapping into it in whatever way you're able to. You can't just jump into those things and expect them to immediately influence things, but you hope that eventually they partially influence what you're doing.
As a band, did you know that you wanted to incorporate different sounds and newer sounds into what you already had on the 3 previous ones, or did it just organically happen?
It's kind of funny because I think naturally we're all fans of like a lot of Jamaican music and stuff beforehand, I think even, but we used to kind of just play around and stuff would come out or whatever, but I think we sort of decided maybe this time to kind of hone it a little more and kind of embrace it a little more rather than just kind of, we used to just play like joke reggae songs or whatever, or like, we used to kind of clown around with it a lot, but I think we kind of became more comfortable with our, with expanding our horizons a little bit as a band anyway.
There's definitely an organic thing of you just want to not sound like you already sounded for us, I think.
Yeah.
Each of us as individuals as well as, and then therefore us as a band, where you just get into specific things, and as an individual you get really into a specific kind of music for a while, or a specific song even for a while, or you just like, you freak out over the sound of a recording that you found and go, oh my God, this, like, listen to how insane and distorted this thing is, but it's so good, it works so well. Or it's like, that guitar is way too loud in that song, like some crazy old rock and roll song or whatever. But you just kind of start to get obsessed with those things. It's like, why do these really extreme, beautiful why do these really extreme recording anomalies work in pop songs? Why do those things work when something is just like 3 times as loud as it should be in the way that they've mixed a song, or the whole thing's so dirty and trashy, yet you can't stop listening to it? And I think that almost like, that isn't a specific influence, but it's almost like the feeling that you get, the kind of head flip of like, how can music be so messy or so extreme or so almost unlistenable and yet be totally riveting and transfixing? And it's almost like that spirit or that feeling is something that gets into you, and then you go, okay, well, I am gonna mess around with this spring reverb until it kills me, like until something is amazing because of how wrong it is or how loud it is, or oh wait, we plugged in a spring reverb into an amp and the amp exploded, but we recorded it the whole time and it's so amazing. And then you work that into the song, and just kind of chasing those things chasing things that are new and exciting to your own ears, even if they're super old and from somewhere else, different culture, whatever. It's kind of chasing those things that where you find magic in recordings and old music, and that happens for all of us, I think, and it happens over a really wide landscape of different musics and from different times and places.
Is that to say that Reflektor then not necessarily took longer to make, but the process perhaps of experimenting, of tweaking and burning amplifiers and getting that sound, did it take longer to achieve this time than it did maybe on the Suburbs or Neon Bible?
I think our production abilities we've kind of gotten to a point where, or we in the last couple of years got to a point where we sort of realized how much we could do, how much more we could do. Like it's like the more you learn, the more you're like, oh, I could do all of this stuff. And so I think there's a lot more of trying a lot of things.
Yeah.
Whereas before, you're just sort of like, you don't even really know how anything works when we started. So we were just sort of, which is a great, which is kind of the fun of the process. But now we're at a point where we know lots of stuff, but therefore we're like, well, we can do that.
There's a lot more decisions to
make.
Yeah,
but then you open up whole new cans of worms, which, it can take a while to kind of figure out, separate the wheat from the chaff, I guess.
Without comparing Arcade Fire to the Beatles, but I mean, there's something similar in the sense that the first Beatle records were pretty basic, and then moved on to bigger and more experimental and sound crafting as well.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
there's kind of a parallel in there somewhere.
Maybe that's a huge thing to say. I don't know about that, but they also had like a team of like 50 engineers working when they went home to sleep at night on it.
Yeah. They would go to, at the end of the day, they'd be like, we want to come back and we just want this to be heavy. And the next day they'd come back and it'd be full of French horns. You're like, oh, the Beatles all did so many amazing things with French horns.
Yeah.
It's like, well, there are other people involved too.
But the Beatles are kind of you can't really compare anyone to the Beatles.